Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Graying Jedi podcast. I am Urza Master. Joining me as always, Lord Uther and Jedi Master Psyllium Maas. Gentlemen, welcome back to that galaxy far, far away where we join a journey in progress with some utmost circumstances. We are in the escape route from the grasp of the evil Darth Vader with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Princess Leia Organa. Gentlemen, this is part 5 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Psyllium Maas, Jedi Master Sir, take us behind the scenes of this part and let us know, how did we get here?
Thank you, Jedi Masters. Thank you, Graying Jedi fans. Thank you, Star Wars fans worldwide. Yes, we are on Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 5, first aired on June 15th, 2022. Director, as for the previous 4 installments, Deborah Chow. The writers, showrunner Joe B. Harold and Andrew Stanton. You'll note an ampersand between them. They worked on this script together. But who is Andrew Stanton? Well, he is Mr. Pixar. That's where he got his start as a writer-director in 1990. And his list of credits is astonishing. He co-wrote and or co-directed A Bug's Life, Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, WALL-E, Monsters, Inc., and all 5 Toy Stories. And found time to do a much maligned but underappreciated Disney science fiction from 2012, John Carter, which was his live-action debut and unfortunately did not connect with audiences worldwide as they had hoped, which is why you will not see much John Carter merchandise at the Disney store. But Andrew Stanton is Pixar, and the man knows his way around story construction and good characterizations. And he was principally responsible in this episode for the Obi-Wan Anakin duel, which seemingly by the costume choices and hairstyles suggests that it takes place in the Attack of the Clones era. Very strongly there. You'll note that Anakin still has his Padawan braid. You will also note that this episode does not feature the feature writers. So once again, as in the last episode, this was an expansion of the original Obi-Wan big screen film, which will lead us into the next week's climactic showdown, which does have feature elements wrapped up inside of it. But this one was a bonus expansion of the story. Gentlemen, it is as Jedi Master Urza Master suggests. It's we are fleeing the Imperials. We are trying to make a stand on the planet Jabin. We have more Roken and the underground path resistance trying to desperately marshal their forces. We have the return of Haja, Camille Dujami. We have an evil Lola. We have more of Tala, the Imperial turncoat, and what made her actually decide to take up arms against the Imperials. We have plenty of Vader. We have plenty of Reva. And we finally, for those of you that are seeing this for the first time or hadn't remembered, we have her backstory as well. As being a youngling in the temple who witnessed firsthand Anakin's slaying of the children and what that did for her. And we have a reversal in motive that Obi-Wan seeks to exploit as the situation becomes more dire. And we have furious lightsaber and blaster battles. And we have the return of the Ed droid with Tala, and I want you guys to sound off on that moment, which I'm sure came from Andrew Stanton and his work in the Pixar, the trying to mix poignancy and tragedy with heroism and optimism, because I have seen this now for the 5th or 6th time, and I still teared up watching that moment between Ed and Tala as they met their end with a thermal detonator. Great quotable lines. You're not bringing him to me. I'm bringing him to you. From Obi-Wan, all he'll see is me. Your need for victory, it blinds you. And we'll want to talk about that in terms of the duel. Gentlemen, for the penultimate episode, a lot on the table. And just it should give you chills up and down your spine. It certainly did me. What say you on part 5?
I mean, you touched on all of it there, right? It just, I mean, they did save the best for last, I will say. But this episode was, I remember watching it the first time and being blown away by Reva's backstory. It feels very predictable now. But I remember, like, in the moment, I was like, oh, this makes sense. But I kind of had the pieces falling together as I was seeing it unfold. So it wasn't disappointing, but I was just like, wow, I'm surprised they went there. Especially knowing Disney, right? Like, it felt a little un-Disney of them. The moment with the thermal detonator, this was a very heavy-hitting episode. And I thought, okay, you knew that, like, there's going to be one moment that they're saving, right? There's still that last face-off, and yet this one just keeps hitting you in the gut. This episode, I almost made me worry that they weren't going to finish well, because this one really took you on a pretty harsh ride, emotionally speaking, and it was good though. Like it really felt like a good, complete Star Wars. It's so apropos that it's part 5 because it was very Empire. I felt it really dialed up exactly the right notes to hit you in the right places. I think my heart hurt when Lola ended up being the tracker, like the bad guy. And that was like, oh man, like they corrupted a droid. I mean, it always felt like the droids are somewhat uncorruptible, whether they're on the dark side or, the light side. I was always like, oh, they're very black and white, but there's so many shades of gray now, go figure, that it was so just poignant. I can't think of any other like words to describe it. It was a very poignant episode. That flashback with Obi-Wan and Anakin, I never thought, like the first time I saw this, I never thought I'd hear the words come out of my mouth, but I was like, I can't believe Hayden Christiansen has finally redeemed himself after all these years and I hated the guy. I thought he ruined the prequels until this episode, until this series, and then everything suddenly kind of fell into place and like, oh, I get it now. And it was a casualty of bad writing at the time. I always thought it was bad acting. I always blamed him for the faults of the writers, and now it's become clear it's like it was no fault of his own. And it's really heartening to see the guy get a second chance and absolutely crush it. I mean, just flawlessly crush it. That was something that really meant a lot, to see, I think, as a Star Wars fan. Like, I always wanted it to be better, and finally it is. And then I think the moment that got me the most, though, is when the original Grand Inquisitor came back.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, that was the surprise. Like, of all the things that, like, this episode could have surprised a person with, that was the one that I think actually surprised me. And I was like, wow, I really didn't see that coming. And just everything about this episode was like they saved so many explosives that, like I said, it worried me for how they're going to round out the series. And like, if it had been a 6th-part misstep, it would be like Empire and Return of the Jedi. Like, everybody loves Empire. Return of the Jedi is fairly mixed. And I feel like that could have been the same route.
Yeah, you know, obviously great episode. The thermal detonator was to me was an Aliens moment. Uh, blowing it up in that confined space like that. And to Urza's point, always about the droids, how you create that bond with the droid yourself, right? And so to see that droid sacrificing their life, kind of towards the end there, before the thermal detonator's blown up. Yeah, it brings you. It kind of gets at the feels, right, when that happens. Again, the Reva thing, I'm still kind of struggling with that one a little bit. And then, has Darth Vader not seen enough movies that you don't leave someone incapacitated like that and then walk away? I mean, at that point, we all knew it was going to probably happen. Maybe we would have liked to have seen something a little different with that. The other thing that threw me off just a little bit was when Vader was holding back that ship. I felt like the ratio of him to the ship was off a little bit, just a tinge. Maybe I was imagining things. But it makes you think about Empire Strikes Back, and why didn't he grab the Falcon when the Falcon was trying to fly away? So that was something I actually said to my wife when we were watching it. I'm like, oh, why didn't he grab the Falcon? He grabbed a ship that seemed to be way larger than that. But I loved the whole weaving in of the Obi-Wan Anakin training piece with that, how they de-aged them a little bit for those scenes. And Urza, we've kind of talked about. I think we've talked about this before in general. I actually felt Hayden Christiansen played the Anakin role properly because he was supposed to be this bratty, spoiled type of person that was too old for the training. Thought that was kind of the whole idea. Again, the writing was absolutely awful, but I felt like he did the best he could, and then he makes this amazing comeback during this entire series. I also liked the whole thing where Vader was really showing off his power by not using his lightsaber at first when he was going against Reva. Actually, I don't think he used his own lightsaber at all, did he? When he fought Reva?
No, I think he
took hers at one point. Yeah. So I thought that was another kind of almost like a show-off moment for Vader. So, I mean, great episode, and then you wonder how they're going to top it, which we're going to find that out. But definitely, I always say the little things add up to a lot. So this episode, kind of putting all these pieces in place, having all these little separate battles and everything, we know it's going to lead up to something more, and you don't want to be let down. And we know what's going to happen in the next episode, and we're not let down at all, in my opinion. So just a great build-up to the next episode.
Gentlemen, some quick hitting points here. I love when Obi-Wan's like, can you get those hangar doors open? And Roken's like, yeah, 4 hours. And I'm like, 4 hours? You've got minutes. It's like, who's got time to sit back and we'll take a look at it here. And union rules say we get lunch. So at some point, it's like, come on, Roken. It's like, work with a little alacrity here. I loved how the duel wasn't just an insight into the moment, but it was they kept coming back to it when they needed the reversals of the present day. So Obi-Wan looks beaten in the Jabin. They're surrounded. Reva's outside. Vader's coming down. There's troops. Like, he looks defeated. And the same, they cut back to the duel. Again, I believe Andrew Stanton is really responsible for this. And Obi-Wan's losing in the duel badly. And Anakin is overpowered him. And then suddenly Obi-Wan on the planet Jabin has a newfound sense of serenity and confidence. And we're like, well, how can that possibly be? Look around you. You're defeated. But we see in the duel how he oversteps those obstacles and gets the upper hand on Anakin. It's just fascinating how it's not just a flashback, but it's actually signaling to us this is how Obi-Wan's going to get the upper hand, even though it looks like he won't. And an interesting note on Anakin's performance there, which again was fabulous. We haven't seen that kind of aggression in that timeline since he slaughtered the Tusken Raiders. So I'm guessing that this takes place after the Tusken slaughter, because again, Anakin was cocky and bratty and so forth, leading up to that moment in the film. But here he's leaning into a little bit of menace, like he's taunting Obi-Wan, and there is that sort of Sith sneer that again has not yet fully become his character. It was a much, and then his dueling is very aggressive, and he's done that in the Ahsoka, which we should also mention. He's terrific as the World Between Worlds Anakin visage in Ahsoka. But like it's a different Anakin than we remember from that era. By the time we get to Revenge of the Sith and so forth, he's got different hair, and he's going to father to be, and he's got Palpatine, pouring poison in his ear and so forth. But this is kind of like, I'm sort of starting to embrace that real dark anger and rage in my system, and it's actually a little scary. Obi-Wan, you can see on his face, like, hey, you need to wind some of this down. So I kind of like Obi-Wan then putting him in his place, like, this is not the way, Anakin, kind of a feel there. And by the way, last thing, with the Grand Inquisitor coming back and Reva, surviving to find the comlink with Bail Organa's message on it. I mean, would Qui-Gon Jinn have survived in this, a few years later? Like, lightsabers just don't have the punch they used to. Like, when you got stabbed in the chest, that was it. But like the Grand Inquisitors made it, Sabine Wren's made it. In this new Disney Plus streaming, it seems like, they're just like lightsabers now. It's like if you chopped a finger while you're doing vegetables in the kitchen. Like, I want to bring us back to lightsabers killing you, or let's start beheading, just to make it perfectly clear that you're not coming back.
All you need is a Bacta tank somewhere
Yes.
nearby.
Bacta advances in Bacta are like through the roof. Guys, invest in Bacta futures right now, because clearly they're on the up.
It's the way to go. It's the way to go. Well, it kind of, I think they're trying to lead into the idea of Darth Maul surviving, through sheer will, force of will, basically. He's cut in half, but he's able to somehow survive, which I still think is kind of dumb. If I'm being honest, like, you got cut in half, I mean, to do that in Star Wars doesn't quite make sense. I mean, when they did it in Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, it was like, all right, this is comedically, this plays very well. He cut him in half with a machete. That was funny. But Darth Maul getting cut in half and surviving just because he hates Obi-Wan so much? I don't know. I mean, I know that's what they're going for here, because that's what's driving Reva, is revenge and the power of the dark side's revenge. I don't know. I also thought it was kind of interesting when Vader grabs the ship, because it's almost identical to the scene in was it Rise of Skywalker? I can't remember the subtitle.
Kylo Ren,
yeah, where no, not Kylo, when Rey grabs the ship and then fries it with Force lightning.
Oh, that's right.
They're kind of making that separation between the two. Is like, well, Vader could grab the ship, but he couldn't fry it with Force lightning. I don't know. I'm still not buying it. Like, how are you so potent in the Force you can grab a whole starship about to jump to warp, but Yoda couldn't do that?
I also wonder, though, if that so I'm wondering if they did it because wasn't Luke supposed to pull a Star Destroyer out of the sky in one of the movies?
I think you're supposed to do that in Return of the Jedi.
Either that, or we're supposed to be in one of the last three movies. I thought he was supposed to do it at some point, and I'm wondering if it was a little bit of a homage to that, or paying it some fan service in a sense.
I think in this case they're trying to mirror the Rise of Skywalker to kind of legitimize the power of Rey. Like, she's just slightly more powerful than Darth Vader. I don't know. There are moments like that where it's like, that was really cool. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, where was his power when it counted? Like, all these other moments where you'd think they were so in tune with the dark or the light side of the Force, and they couldn't summon up the strength to, like, I don't know, pole vault themselves off a cliff into the back of a ship. Like that moment in Ahsoka still kind of like baffles me. Like, really? What? When did they learn how to Mario double jump? Like, I don't know. There's some weirdness there.
Grogu can do amazing things with his powers, yet he always needs a nap, like right after. So maybe it's just really like.
But see, I get that. I get that a lot. I also think that's interesting because you think of the small children in some of these sci-fi type shows who have these incredible powers, and every time Grogu falls asleep after dipping into the Force a little too heavy, I always think of Goku in Dragon Ball. When he uses so much of his power that he immediately is like sleeping. Right after, or he has to eat because he's so hungry. He used up all his power. Like Grogu and Goku are very much the same. They even have similar names. So like you can't tell me that they're not borrowing some ideas there from Akira Toriyama. But anyway, great episode, but it does need a Kyber Crystal rating. I don't know that any of us have any illusions about where we're going to fall on this one, but Jedi Master Psyllium Maas, kick us off. How does your lightsaber ignite for Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 5?
Well, friends, there's nothing cloudy about my opinions of Star Wars episodes, but we are going to go with a green John Carpenter's The Fog special edition DVD and so forth. This is a sickly, ugly green because it's supposed to represent evil, but no. In the context of Star Wars, friends, it's all good. It's Kermit the Frog green, not leprous ghosts from the past trying to seek their revenge. So, all Emerald City, full speed ahead.
Well, as we used to say back in the day, this episode was cash money. So, seeing as it's episode 5, we'll go with $5 bill. Green.
I want it.
It just made my heart rich watching this movie or this episode. So there we go.
Yes, fantastic. And it used to be that the $5 bill was more green. They've since added some coloration. I'm going Rayman 2: The Great Escape green for N64. Fantastic episode. This is. Like I said, it made me worry for the conclusion of this series because how do you top this? It was so good. But, as we'll see on the next Graying Jedi podcast, as we round out Obi-Wan Kenobi, there are secrets yet to be discovered in the ways of the Force and the ways of Obi-Wan Kenobi until we get to that final peak, that final glimpse of the story of Obi-Wan Kenobi. To all of you out there, on pending rebrand and beyond, we say, may the Force be with you.
And with all of us.